What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. Well, actually, it's kind of the Sunday solo show on a Tuesday because Casino could not be here today. Life got in the way. So it is just me, just Will on the only sports podcast. You see it right there behind me. Just cross out Casino's name because it's only me today. And Casino and I will be back with a full episode tomorrow. So we'll have full episodes on Tuesday or on Wednesday and Thursday, and then we'll have clips from the show on Friday, Saturday, and then we'll do solo show. I'm bringing back the solo show on Sunday, going to be consistent with it this coming Sunday, and then yeah, we'll also talk about Monday Night Football on Monday. So if you like the Only Sports podcast, you're going to have a new video every single day, even if it's clips. It'll still be new videos. So today I was like, well, what should I talk about since me and Casino are doing a show tomorrow? And then I was like, you know what? Because I didn't do this week's Sunday solo show, we are just going to. I have literally every dog. We got 2 new puppies, so I have 4 dogs around me. And then my son's off school today because I don't know if you guys heard or not, but there's an election happening tonight. So apparently, you know, kids can't go to school because they have to have the schools be where we go vote. Also, I'm not going to be one of those douchebags that says go vote because I didn't vote. If you don't vote or don't care about voting, then don't vote. I didn't vote. I'm not voting the first time ever with me being able to vote because I don't like anybody. Don't like any of the candidates, don't like any of the third party options. So I'm sitting out, which is as much of my right as it is to vote. So either vote, don't vote. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's all garbage. But so I thought today, what should I do if Casino and I are going to do a show tomorrow anyways? I just don't want to do the normal show without him because then what will we do tomorrow? So tomorrow will be what is normally the Tuesday show where we go through all the games, we do our talk about college football, all that kind of stuff, marquee mid and miserable matchups. So I'm going to do what I normally do on the Sunday show since I didn't do it this week. And we're just going to do definitely, maybe, and I don't know. Okay. So without further ado, let's just get it started and let's just start with the definitely. Now, for anybody who hasn't listened to the Sunday solo shows, definitely, maybe, I don't know, is all the things that I definitely know, all the things that I maybe know, and then all the things I don't know. Right. And this is the week 9 NFL edition of the definitely, maybe, I don't know. Let's start first with the definitely. And definitely the best football move maybe ever in the history of football, in the history of sports, the history of the world, is the Saquon Barkley backwards hurdle, right? And it's being talked, and this is not just me, it's being talked about in the sports world as maybe the most athletic play in the history of the NFL. Now, again, I've been watching football since I was 8, 9 years old, so 98, 99. If we're gonna just encompass the history of football, I don't know how you can be like, this one single play is the most athletic, best play in the history of the NFL, but one of them has to be. Why not this move? We've never seen a backwards hurdle. I'm sure somebody somewhere will be like, actually, we have in the 1988 Rose Bowl, and then they'll just randomly pull up somebody doing a backwards hurdle. But in terms of right now, prisoners of the moment, as we all are, this Saquon Barkley, just the whole move, the juke, the spin, the backwards hurdle. There's also come a video out lately that shows him when he was on the Giants attempting to do a backwards hurdle. So this isn't a thing he just randomly pulled out. It has been in his career attempted before and it was thwarted. So I don't even know if I said that word right, but it has been stopped before in the past. This one was not stopped and it created a move that, I mean, will, at the very least, if it's not the best football move ever, it is definitely top 5 and it'll live on in clips for the entire history of the NFL. Just absolutely insane. Now, so that was a joke, and definitely, but definitely starts for real now. And this is definitely the last season for Doug Peterson as the Jaguars head coach. Let's just we'll talk about Jaguars Eagles tomorrow when we go through the games, but it's definitely his last season as the Jaguars head coach. After Sunday's loss to my Eagles, they are now 2-7. The Jaguars are. Trevor Lawrence had, I would dare say, an abysmal game. 16 of 31, 169 yards. Nice. Zero touchdowns, two interceptions. That entire first half of the game, they had, I think, 60 something yards of offense, maybe even less than that in the first half of that game. It's crazy to think that Doug Peterson and Nick Foles won a Super Bowl for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? Maybe the most improbable, actually, I would probably say the most improbable coaching quarterback combination win, maybe just team in general win of a Super Bowl ever. I mean, when you look back in hindsight, it was crazy at the time, but you were like, well, Doug Peterson was really good with Carson Wentz. Who knows how many games they're going to win after this? Who knows what's this team's going to look like when Carson Wentz? So we didn't have the hindsight of the past. We only had the optimism of the future and just being like, maybe Wentz is really good as the number two or number one, I can't remember, overall pick. Or maybe, Doug Peterson ends up being this really great coach. And now in hindsight, that might be the craziest Super Bowl quarterback coach combination in history because Doug Peterson looks like, outside of that one season and I think one other season in Philadelphia, it just looks like he's kind of lost out there and he looks like the worst coach any week. I mean, especially when this game, when the other coach is out coaching himself to try to lose the game, you come in and then, I mean, you get 16 points in the third quarter. Really, it was 8 because that fumble and 2-point conversion was just, I mean, at this point, we'll talk about it tomorrow, but at this point, I think it's been just widely regarded as one of the worst calls maybe in NFL history. Again, if we're just talking about history in general, everybody knows that wasn't a fumble. It was a textbook, like, he was touched and he was down. Everybody's made the case already. If he got up and started running, they would have blown the play dead. So yeah, basically that entire offense scored 8 points through 3 quarters and then got kind of a garbage touchdown late. And yeah, that game wasn't even close. Since Peterson got to Jacksonville, every season he's been there, Lawrence has looked worse, the team has looked worse, the rosters looked worse. So definitely last season for Doug Peterson as the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, next up, let's talk about, it is definitely the Broncos were overrated by me. I put them in my top 10. I've been giving the Denver Broncos fans, especially the guys who commented on our earlier videos, raking me over the coals for saying the Broncos would be bad. I've given you all your flowers. I've said how good I thought the Broncos looked this season. I even put them in my top 10 power rankings on Thursday's show. And then they come into this week's game and just kind of get the doors blown off them in a game that I said on the show I thought would be competitive. I picked the Ravens to win. I believe Casino and I both picked the Ravens to win. If it's on here. Yes, we both picked the Ravens to win, but this was a marquee game, right? Oh, the TV went out. My son here, the assistant of the show, will put that back on. But yeah, the Broncos, this was supposed to be a competitive game, the almost number one offense or a top 5 offense, no question, with a top 5 offense was supposed to. Oh, and now this is supposed to, yeah. Technical difficulties. There we go. But yeah, this was supposed to be a clash of great number one offense, I believe they were number 2 or 3 defense when it comes to the Broncos. Juggernaut slugfest between two Titans, right? And then the now 5-4 Broncos lose 10-41 against the Baltimore Ravens. So you watch this game, you look at the stats. It really wasn't I still like Bo Nix. I think he's good. I just think that defense got exposed because when you look at who the Broncos have played, and this is the thing that I was kind of being like, well, doing that football thing where you say, well, they only play who's on their schedule. They only play who's on their schedule. But when you look at their schedule, the Broncos lost to the Seahawks and Steelers. So, the Steelers, obviously, it was a 13-6 game. That was when Justin Fields was in there, kind of beginning of the season. You kind of, again, you throw the first 2, 3 games out of the scenario when talking about teams, especially with no preseason, blah, blah, blah. But then you look at week 3 and it's like, oh, they win 26-7 against the Tampa Bay Bucks, who high-powered offense. Baker Mayfield, top 5 passing leader in the NFL right now. I think he still is, even after Monday Night Football. And then it's like, okay, they have a slugfest with the Jets, and then they beat the Raiders, they lose to the Chargers, they beat the Saints, they beat the Panthers, and then they get blown up by the Ravens. And then you kind of look at that board and you go, oh, Panthers and Saints might be 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. They lost to the Chargers, who in their own division will be a probably playoff contending team, if not a playoff team themselves. And then you look at the Raiders, where they beat Raiders, might be a bottom 5 team. They won by 1 point against the Jets, who again, right now might be one of the top, I mean, I would say maybe top 5, definitely top 10 worst teams in the league. And then you kind of have the outliers where it's like, oh yeah, they lost to the Seahawks, who might, I mean, at this point, finish 3rd or 4th in their division. And then they lost to the Steelers, who look like the best team in the league, but this was before they made the Russell Wilson switch and they had no passing attack. So it's like, of all their wins and losses, kind of the only one where you're like, that was a really good win, especially for the defense, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in week 3. All the other ones you can make like cases where it's kind of, yeah, you're playing, who are you playing? Right? Like with the Raiders, I don't even know who their quarterback was in that game. They've played 3 different quarterbacks. Same with the Saints, same with the Packers. So, or not Packers, Panthers. Same with the Saints, same with the Panthers. It's like I don't think Derek Carr was in that game. It's just, it gets weird. So they lost to the good teams they played. They beat one good team, and then they lost to, and then they beat guys who are playing their backups or third string quarterbacks. So when you look at the Denver Broncos, are they, now again, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying they were overrated by me because I thought this was the 10th best team in the league, right? And I thought they would be in contention for a playoff spot. And at 5-4 in the AFC, I mean, we just look at the standings right here, and they're going to finish behind the Bills. They're going to finish behind the Steelers and the Ravens. The Bengals are within 1 win of them. Right now, I would probably pick the Bengals over the Broncos. And then in their own division, they're going to finish behind the Chiefs, the Chargers, and kind of just be cemented in that 3rd spot. And then you look at I mean, they're right there. They're one, again, same with the Bengals. They're within 1 win of Colts. So if right now you are in the AFC, that last playoff spot is going to be up for contention between, let's say, the Bengals, the Colts, and the Chargers. That's who the Broncos are going to go in. I think I would pick the Bengals and Chargers right now over the Broncos. So this feels all day like a 7-10 team, 8-9 team, 9-10, whatever. I know they threw that game in there, so now the numbers are all weird. But yeah, this feels like a team that is going to be 1 or 2 games away from the playoffs when, I don't know. I feel like people, 3 weeks ago, including myself, were like, hey, maybe the Broncos are legitimately the best team in the AFC West. Maybe they have the best defense. And then both them and the Titans kind of get exposed within 2 weeks of each other, of just being like, oh yeah, maybe those defenses are so great based on who they played, not on them actually being, you know, generational season best defenses. We just talked about them. Let's move on. Definitely the Bengals are better than 4-5. They played the Raiders, who I just talked about was one of the worst teams in the league. They both had Minshew and Desmond Ritter as their starting quarterback. So I don't know what happened to Minshew since he left Jacksonville, but he's really fallen off. And then Desmond Ritter, I mean, I think statistically, when he was with the Falcons, he was like the worst quarterback in the league, right? And in this game, I mean, he still comes in, completes 11 passes for 74 yards. So it's all dink and dunks. And I think he had, oh, yeah, he had one carry for 2 yards. So not lighting the world on fire. But who was lighting the world on fire was Joe Burrow. This season, the numbers he's putting up are incredible. Like there's no other word for it. I mean, you look at his touchdown to interception ratio, you look at just how they're winning games. If they have to win every game in a shootout, I mean, they basically have been. Every game they've won has been in a shootout. He has 15 touchdowns, 3 interceptions this season, and 2,000 yards passing. And again, that's on a 4-5 team that has a bottom five defense in the league. They have injuries on the offense. I think both their offensive line and T. Higgins has been out for a couple weeks, but Chase Brown, 27 carries, 120 yards. They found a good, he's not as good as Joe Mixon, but he's a good replacement for Joe Mixon to just kind of help with that rushing attack. And then this was the Gesicki breakout game. Everybody's been waiting for him. Of course, I dropped him in fantasy probably a month ago when he was doing absolutely nothing. But again, you look at the stats for the receivers, not really any crazy numbers. Gesicki had 100 yards on the dot. The closest one next to him was Jamar Chase with 43 yards. So nobody else over 100 yards. He still throws Burrow, that is 27 of 39, 251 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Two of those went to Gesicki, and then it was kind of just spread around. So again, masterclass in how to play quarterback. And again, Burrow really does make the case where it's like maybe it's not the team, it's the player, right? Like maybe when we all do the thing where it's like, we're going to talk about Tua next, maybe where it's that thing where it's like, oh, well, it's the team, it's the system, it's the weapons. Sometimes maybe it's just the quarterback. And Joe Burrow right now, I mean, if his team was, they're 4-5 right now, if they were 6-3, if they were 6-2 right now, I really think he would be legitimately the MVP front runner. And who knows, by the end of the season, he might be, because the Bengals look like they kind of figured out their defense a little bit. And then their offense has been lights out for weeks now. So 4-5 Bengals, watch out for them. But I just mentioned it right there. Last two definitely's right here. The last definite, or the second to last definitely, is Tua makes the Dolphins better, not the other way around. We always heard like, oh, you shouldn't pay Tua this money. Any quarterback can go in the Mike McDaniel's, crazy offense. They have Waddle, they have Tyreek Hill, they got A Chain, they got these crazy offensive weapons, these crazy schemes, all this motion offense, blah 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 blah. And then without Tua, they were, I believe, 1-6, or maybe he started a couple of those games, but they had a rough start to the season with Tua. I'm not trying to say that this team was great with Tua and then he got knocked out and then they were bad and then Tua comes back and they're all of a sudden great. But you look at the difference just of how this team plays football when Tua's in and when he's out. I mean, it's night and day difference. They were competitive at least in this game with the Buffalo Bills that they lose by 3 points. But honestly, one or two plays go different in that game and they win this game, right? If this game, if the kick is a little short, if this game goes to OT, who knows what happens? But you look at, they lost by 1 point to the Cardinals, where Tua was lights out. And then that was the game he came back in. Before that, they're scoring 10 points against the Colts. They're scoring 15 points against the Patriots. They're scoring 12 points against the Titans, 3 points against the Seahawks. He got knocked out in week 2. So he had a rough game on that Thursday night. Remember, he threw, God, how many was it? 3-4 interceptions. It was just having maybe the worst game of his career. But again, he gets knocked out of that game, and we look at what the Dolphins were after that game. Before that, they beat the Jaguars by 3 points. Not that impressive when you consider how bad the Jaguars have been this season. But again, my team just beat them by 4 or 5 points. So I can't really give them that much crap. A win is a win in my book. But Yeah, after that, you have what is it? The Seahawks. They again only score 3. Then the Titans, they only score 12. Then they beat the Patriots, who are right there with the Raiders as one of the worst teams in the league, that they barely beat by 5 points, lose to the Colts by 6 points. I mean, I just repeated all this, but yeah, when he's not in there, their offense doesn't score points. At least when he's in there, much like the Arizona game, much with the Buffalo game, I mean, they're scoring almost 4 touchdowns a game. So they're scoring what, 18 more points almost on average in games he's in than in games he's out of. If it's the system, if it's all the weapons, if it's all of that, why aren't these other quarterbacks doing that? Now they always say like, "Oh, backup quarterbacks, there's really only legitimately like 20 good quarterbacks in the league." Yeah, and who was one of them? Like we've seen again, would you rather have Tua? Would you rather have the guy would you rather have Anthony Richardson? Would you rather have Lawrence right now? Would you rather have Mason Rudolph? Would you rather have Gardner Minshew? Like, no, of course not. Like, Tua is not a top 10 quarterback, but he's much closer to being a top 10 quarterback than he is a bottom 32 quarterback, right? You'd rather have him in the top 10 than the bottom 10. So we need to stop with this whole like, oh, Tua's not good. It's a part of the system. And then it's like, then how come the system never works when he's not out of it? When he's out of the system doesn't work. So maybe we stop giving so much credit to the system and give a little bit credit to Tua. Now, Tua, I would dare say, great regular season quarterback, or can be great, good to great regular season quarterback, and then he's bad in the playoffs. How many other quarterbacks can we say that about? Let's see, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, I'm assuming a handful of others that we can lump into that thing where they're great regular season quarterbacks. I mean, Peyton Manning for what, a decade or a little bit less than that of his career, for like the first 6, 7 years of his career, he was known as like a loser in the postseason. And then all of a sudden he won 2 Super Bowls. And now that's not really kind of that's brushed under the rug. So it only takes one season for you to just break that stigma. I mean, there's still people who think Aaron Rodgers, because he won 1 Super Bowl, is had like postseason success when I believe he's like 50-50 in the postseason if he even makes it. And this year he's definitely not making it. So our last, definitely, this one's pretty simple and I won't ramble on like I have been with the other stuff, but uh there was a tiny period of time there where both Casino and I, at the beginning of the season when we made predictions, it was like, it's a lock. The Falcons are winning the NFC South, right? It was a lock. There was no debate for it. We were like, they're the clear, we're hopping on the bandwagon, clear number one choice to win the NFC South. And then there was a couple weeks there, about a month period, where it was like, oh, maybe the Buccaneers come out of nowhere and take the crown from the Falcons. That those hopes or dreams, if you're a Tampa Bay fan, and obviously we're Baker Mayfield fans on here, not that we don't like the Falcons or Kirk Cousins, but we just think that, you know, Baker Mayfield's entertaining and I like watching him and his swagger that he has. But yeah, after heading into week 10, it is clear that I believe the Falcons have, I know they have a definite 2 game advantage, but I think they already beat the Bucks. So I think it's a 2.5 game lead going into week 10. And again, injuries are when it happens to your team, and believe me, as an Eagles fan, I've had entire years of my life where the season was over just because of injuries, right? Like, I mean, every time Lane Johnson gets knocked out of a game and doesn't come back in, it's basically the end of the game. Like, Eagles lose. I think I don't have stats to look this up, but I would say 100% of the time when he gets knocked out of games, they just immediately lose. It's the weirdest thing ever. But yeah, so injuries have kind of taken the Bucks out of contention. I mean, last night, we'll talk about the Chiefs Buccaneers game in a bit, but if they had weapons in that game last night and their O-line wasn't banged up, like, they probably win that game. I mean, there was a couple things here and there that, again, Casino will probably rant about when it comes to the Chiefs tomorrow. But yeah, I just think injuries kind of plague the Buccaneers this season, and Falcons, yeah, looking good, 6-3. They definitely win the NFC West, or sorry, NFC South. Next up, let's go to the maybes, and I have less definitely was the one I had the most of. Maybes is a little less, and then I don't know is a little less. So trying to make it a little quicker on these. And let's just start with the maybe. And the maybes now are things where it's like, maybe you can change my mind. Maybe the team or player can change my mind in a week or two. But right now, it's like maybe, and I'll show you what I mean with the first one, which is maybe the Bears just aren't good. Maybe they aren't good. I mean, they got absolutely annihilated by the Arizona Cardinals. And I said in my picks, every time I pick the Cardinals, they lose. Every time I pick against them, they win. Every time I pick them, they lose. This finally broke the streak. I picked the Cardinals, Casino picked the Bears, and the Cardinals finally won a game. Also won a game fairly early on because I mean into this at halftime this game was 21-9, and then Chicago never scored another point after that. Arizona barely scored another point after this, so it's kind of over by halftime. Now, to Caleb Williams' credit, he has not been uh again, we were not the ones on this podcast who elevated him to where it was like he's going to come into the league and instantly be one of the top 5 best quarterbacks in the league. I heard that take by legitimate people in the sports media world, and I was always just like, what are you talking about? Like this just insane notion where it was like, oh, Caleb Williams goes into the most rookie friendly team ever assembled. And it was like, how can you possibly know that before they've ever played a game? We've seen, again, as an Eagles fan, I've seen the dream team moniker be bestowed upon teams before we even saw them play a snap. And that works out, I would say, 0% of the time. So Caleb Williams this year, 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 1,600 yards, and that's in 8 games. So again, not good, not great. He's been sacked 29 times. So again, not good, not great. He's kind of just a rookie quarterback, right? I mean, Jaden Daniels and uh what is it? The guy from Houston. Why am I blanking on? Or CJ Stroud from last year are the exceptions, not the rules, right? It takes time in this league to figure out your offense, to play at a NFL speed, to be, get acquainted to a new system. Even, veterans that have been in this league for years, it takes them at least half a season to know who their coordinator is and the system they want to run and the timing and get to know your teammates and stuff like that. So to think that, and again, the Bears are 4-4. So I think this is a win in terms of a young quarterback going to a team that, besides the 1985 season, has kind of been a team that has always been in that lump with the, Lions and that lump with the Jets, just like the kind of lovable Browns, lovable losers who never really have success. I mean, my team was like that before, you know, Jeffrey Lurie brought the team. So I feel the pain of Bears fans. But yeah, this season, they were again, they have the easiest schedule in the league. They've played so far, I think, the easiest schedule in the league. And after that, they've been 4-4. Caleb Williams has been okay, and their defense has been pretty great, but has been getting exposed a little bit in the past couple of weeks, much like the Broncos, much like the Titans defenses. So yeah, but I still like their pieces. I still like Swift. I still like Adunzie. I still like Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Like, what the Bears need to do is focus this offseason on rebuilding that O-line, draft an offensive lineman in the first round, uh, like try to get the best offensive lineman in the first round based on where you're going to be drafting. But yeah, and then just kind of come back next year. I mean, it's not over. Obviously, we're only in week 10 and they're 4-4, but within that division they have. I mean, they're the worst team in their division, which is bad because if they were in the Cardinals division, they'd be one game out. But they're in the Lions and Packers and Vikings division, so they're last in that division. Again, that is starting to we said a couple weeks ago where it was like, "Oh, all these teams are within one of each other." Well, now heading into week 10, we're starting to now see the separation of the bad, the good, and then the great teams. And sadly for the Bears, I think good to great is the 3 teams in front of them in their own division, right? The Lions are 7-1, Minnesota's 6-2, Green Bay 6-3, and then there's Chicago at 4-4. And I don't believe I think they've only played one of those teams once. So they're going into the stretch of their season where all of a sudden they're going to have to start playing all these division rivals. And actually, let's look at their schedule right here. So they have next week, they have the Patriots, who they should destroy. They go Packers, Vikings, Lions in a row. Ooh. Oh, this is they're 4-4 right now. And then looking at their schedule, they have that one of this was supposed to be their easy stretch where they are playing Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots. At the start of the season, it was like, oh, these are three must wins. Well, they've lost both the Commanders and Cardinals games. And then they are now going to play what is it? They're going to play the Patriots this weekend. And then they are going to then have to play Packers, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, and then Vikings, Lions, Seahawks, Packers again. So after the Patriots, they play all playoff teams. Well, the 49ers might not be, but we know the 49ers are better than the record indicates, and they were in the Super Bowl last year. So they play all playoff teams except the Patriots after this coming week. Just every single week from week 11 till the end of the regular season. That is rough. That is rough. But let's move on. Speaking of the same division, maybe the Packers can't win the big ones with Jordan Love as quarterback. And we saw that in this game. We've seen that in a couple games now. Now, again, I'm not going to be one of those people that kill him because I do think injury is playing a factor in his sudden drop off when it comes to completion percentage and throwing more interceptions. And you can hear every brain dead idiot who talks about sports be like, he's more the bad part of Favre than he is the good part of Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, yeah, we get it. He's a Packer, so you have to compare him to those two. But it's like, he's not really either of those. And him being reckless with the ball more feels like just kind of the injury lingering. Again, what I would not be shocked if after this season's over or whenever his season's over, God forbid if he gets hurt more, we just hear like oh yeah, he was struggling with injury. He was playing with injury basically since, week 7, whatever game he got knocked out of, where he had to miss a couple weeks and Malik Willis came in. So in this game, uh it was against the Detroit Lions, where obviously the Lions right now 7-1. I would pick them against any other team in the league, including the Chiefs. We've already saw them beat the Chiefs last year. I think the Chiefs are worse now than they were last year, and the Lions are better now than they were at this point last year. So I would take the Lions kind of over the field right now, and that might be reflected in my power rankings on Thursday. But yeah, loving this game. 23 for 39, 273, one interception. Again, not bad, but this is you could tell he was struggling in the conditions of this game, and the Lions kind of just pushed him around. I mean, this season right now, he has 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and he's lost 4 fumbles. So again, he's not bad. I'm not saying that. I just think when he plays in these big matchups, can you really trust him? Because even in that first week against the Eagles, like that was a very winnable game that he kind of just let slip through his fingers. So again, I am not giving up on the Packers. I think I'm giving up on the Bears because you look at them being 2 games behind everybody in their division and then the rest of their schedule the rest of the way. That is brutal. I think they could potentially win. They could potentially finish with 7 or 8 wins, or they could potentially finish with like 5, 6 wins. I really do think that. So yeah, this is not a writing the Packers off, but it is writing the Bears off. I think I am done with the Bears. Next up on the maybes, maybe the Rams or Cardinals win the NFC West. At the beginning of the season, it was a real debate between like, oh, will it be the 49ers going back to the Super Bowl? And I believe they had at the start of the season the best odds to win the Super Bowl, even more than the Chiefs, which never makes sense to me when the team that just lost the Super Bowl has better odds than the team that just beat them in the Super Bowl. But We already talked about that at the beginning of the season. But right now, Arizona, of all teams in that division, leads the NFC West 5-4 at top of the division, followed closely by the all of a sudden really healthy, really good defense Rams. Like the Rams defense is all of a sudden just clicked on, and now all of a sudden they have all these young playmakers on defense. They're getting all their weapons back on offense, and Matt Stafford is just throwing 40-yard dots to win OT games against, again, the Seahawks, who we thought would be in playoff contention again. And then the 49ers, who we talked about the injury bug. They just might be one of the least lucky injury bug ridden teams this season. For them to be 4-4 at this stretch is actually kind of impressive. And as an Eagles fan, you guys know how much I hate the 49ers. So for me to give them props shows how good they've done. But yeah, so maybe Rams or Cardinals win the NFC West. Maybe both of them make it to the playoffs. Who knows? The it looks like kind of the last two playoff spots are right now going to be between Eagles, Commanders, and then anybody in the NFC North. We'll even throw the Bears in there. Maybe the Tampa Bay Bucks, and then it's everybody in the NFC West. So a it looks like you really need to win the NFC West to get into it. Because again, every other team in that division outside of Arizona is 2 wins behind all the 6-win teams that right now would be vying for the last 2 playoff spots, right? So it would be Eagles, Vikings, Packers right now. And I don't think I would take Rams, 49ers, or Seahawks over any of those teams at the moment. Maybe the Packers, based on what I just said, but yeah, I don't know. That's why it's called maybe. Maybe. I know I just said I don't know, but it's maybe. Maybe based on Monday Night Football. Maybe nobody beats the Chiefs this season. Maybe this is just how it goes. They won last night 30-24 in Kansas City, and we'll hear from Casino tomorrow about all the missed calls and the phantom face mask and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like I don't understand this whole Chiefs get every call thing, and then there's like a compilation after every game of like, here's every call they missed, and then everybody will be like, yeah, but they also got calls against them too, and it's always just like, yeah, but it's the timing of when they get the calls. It stops a touchdown here, it stops a surge there, it stops momentum there, it gives them momentum when they have no momentum. It's the timing of the penalties that are more of a problem than the penalties themselves. But yeah, maybe they just go undefeated and then everybody's upset about it except the Kansas City fans who just get to talk shit for another year. And then we get to hear Travis Kelce sing in the Super Bowl post game and he proposed to Taylor Swift and it's the best thing ever, whatever. Next up, I don't know. I only have 3 I don't knows and then we'll get out of here. I wanted to go about 45 minutes, so I think I am going to hit that right on the head, but I don't know. I don't know if Jameis Winston is good or bad. I really don't. He seems, again, this is the whole thing about him and has been the whole thing about him in the league. He throws as many touchdowns as he does interceptions. He comes in last week, beats the Ravens. You know, everybody's like, oh, look at the Browns offense, us included. We're like, look at this Browns offense when they have an actual quarterback and not the guy who should be in prison at quarterback, right? And then all of a sudden, Jameis Winston this week, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions against a Chargers team that every week seems or appears to be insanely beatable, and then they kind of just win. They're 5-3, and I feel like they're the least talked about 5-3 team in the league, including by us, because it's kind of just like they don't win pretty. It's like the Chiefs, but they don't get any help. They don't get any publicity. It's kind of just, yeah, win ugly and then kind of just, I mean, this game they dominated. Justin Herbert he's been on a roll the past 3 weeks, like getting better each and every week. J.K. Dobbins had 2 rushing touchdowns. Johnston had over 100 yards and a touchdown. McConkey is now their just second best option on that team. So slowly here come the Chargers. But when it comes to Jameis Winston, he throws 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. And again, this is what you get with him. You get great weeks, you get bad weeks. This is also probably why he's not an official starting quarterback in the league on a team that in a team, or no, I should say in a league that needs quarterbacks, because he throws 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. So he gives you as much good as he does bad. And then does it ever like even out, right? Like it is always even. You never get more bad than good, but you're also not gonna, win a Super Bowl with Jameis Winston, I don't think. So I don't know. I don't know if he's good or bad. Next up, I don't know what the Texans are. I legitimately don't. We've been talking about it for weeks here, almost a month at this point, of just being like the Texans are 6-3 and they're just the least impressive like winningest team in the league at this moment. And then on Thursday night, we see they lose 21-13 against a Jets team that's in free fall. The Jets are 3-6. The Texans are 6-3. You could have told me both teams watching that game were 3-6, and I would have believed you. Like CJ Stroud, 11 for 30, 191 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Mixon goes just over 100 yards at 106 with 1 touchdown. Tank Dell has the game of his life, six receptions, 126 yards, but lost 2 fumbles, one by Stroud, and then yeah, it just felt like a really weird game. It felt like the Jets were on life support, and then all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers comes out, 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, has the best game he's had as a Jet. And then Brees Hall, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, like all their pieces finally hit. And it's like, how are you hitting against what is a top 5 team in every category? They were top 5. Then they were top 7. Now they're kind of top 9. And it's like they're having this weird, hopefully their season goes like this, right? Where it starts up, it swoops down, and then it goes back up. But right now they're kind of at a slide down. And can they hit the peak again? I don't know. Because again, when you watch them, even in their wins, even in their impressive wins, you're like, something isn't right here. So I don't know. I don't know what the Texans are. I don't know if they're good or bad. Speaking of the last one, Jameis Winston. The last one. I don't know why at the beginning of the season, why people thought the Cowboys would be good. I never understood that at the beginning of the season. Now, again, you can say, "Oh, Vegas loves the Cowboys because so much money always comes to the Cowboys to win the division, win the Super Bowl." They're talked about on every show. They're even still being talked about at 3-5 and kind of a nothing in the realm of the NFL this season. But in this game, Dak Prescott gets I believe it's a hamstring injury where he'll miss a couple of weeks. So he was 18 for 24, 133 yards, 1 touchdown. Cooper Rush comes in 13 for 25, 115 yards, 1 touchdown. But at no point did it ever feel like the Falcons were going to lose that game. The Cowboys do that classic get down big and then kind of start a half-ass comeback and then lose. Kirk Cousins threw 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Didn't feel like he was pressured or touched the entire day. Yeah, or he got sacked twice, right? So I don't know. Again, at the beginning of the season, it was like their defense isn't going to be as good. All their offense is CeeDee Lamb, and then they have the worst running back room in the entire league. And everybody just kind of like brushed those off, like, oh, that doesn't matter. They have Dak, who's a great regular season quarterback, and they have McCarthy, who's a great regular season coach. And then it's like, yeah, but they've gotten worse every year with those two at the helm. And then finally it kind of came to a head where they're 3-5 this season. And again, I just read off all the NFC teams ahead of them. They would have to run the table and then probably get some help. Like the Vikings or Packers or Eagles or Commanders or Lions, they would all have to fall off for the Cowboys to even be not in the playoffs, like have a shot at getting in the playoffs. So as an Eagles fan, it delights me, but I will save my Cowboys trash talk until after they play the Eagles as to not, you know, put any of that bad juju into the audience, into the atmosphere. But yeah. So I don't know why people thought the Cowboys would be good. This is they've actually been better than I thought they would be. And I didn't think they would be that bad. And I didn't think they would be that good. And they've also been pretty bad this season, right? 3-5. I think or 3 of those 5 losses, maybe 4 of those 5 losses have been blowouts at home. So again, not good. Maybe running backs do matter because it seems like all the teams that have a pretty great rushing attack are doing pretty damn good in this league. So rushing defense and not turning over the ball. Who would have thought those were the keys to victory for any team? But yeah, this is the end. Just wanted to get a quick 45-minute episode in and I nailed it. So that was definitely maybe And I don't know. We will be back tomorrow on the Only Sports Podcast. I've been Will. Tomorrow we'll be back with Casino to do our regularly scheduled program where we'll talk about all these games. We'll talk about college football, and then we'll do everybody's new favorite segment, Casino's Corner. So we'll see you tomorrow, pretty much at the same time. So adios.